So, apologies in advance. I'm kind of going to go rock nerd on you today. I'm really excited for today's video. I'm taking you to a mine that I've never been to, and so it's fairly high up here in the mountains. So let's go check it out and let's explore together on this one. So, this is the first signs of the Argonaut mine. This mine was found a little later than most of the mines. You know, most of them were found back in the late 1800s. This one was found in the late 1930s. Time out for a second. After I got back, I did a little more research. I found some documents from the Office of Mineral Exploration. Went into some background about this mine, and I'll go into more about this OME stuff here in a minute. But this mine was actually kind of found around 1890 to 1900. Hardly any development work was done during that time period. It wasn't until 1938 when John Arthur come in and promoted the mine, kind of got it up and running, put a mill in. So just to clarify, it was actually found early on. Just really no development work done was until later. Carrying on. And they also did some more development work, I think it was in the 60s. They weren't really looking for gold so much as another metal that the government was after. And I'll have to look it up again. I've read about it a couple times. And back then, the government actually helped fund these mining expeditions for that certain metals they were after that they considered a national asset. So, pretty neat. You can definitely tell this is not the oldest of cabins. It's still fairly old. How would you like to stay a winter up in here? There's the old stovepipe. Again, like I've mentioned on a couple videos, anytime you see plywood, the pack rats just love to chew on that stuff. I don't know if it's the glue or what it is, but in no time that plywood's gone. Let's go look around outside. Pretty excited. I've never been to this mine, so. And down the road here a ways, I found some tracks that we'll probably look at on the way out. I heard there was a mining camp set up down here lower than the mine. And I've seen some tracks heading back in those trees, so we'll come back and look at that. If the floor wasn't so messed up, you could make a nice little snowmobile shelter out of that. Very cool. Let's go on up. I think the lower tunnel is right above us here, I think. Okay, you can see the tracks coming out. Right here would have been a little overhead rail system to come out here to this dump pile. Here's a picture of what it looked like back in the day. This mine was another one, like I mentioned on the last mine video about the Golconda mine. John Arthur had a lot to do with this one, and he didn't find the mine, but he got involved in it later on, and he really promoted this and kind of got it going. So a lot of the samples were done by him. They've got a pretty good sample map of what they pull. You know, they went in and took samples, and they wrote on the map where they found what. So, you know, most of them were taken by him. So I don't know if this was actually a good mine. You know, back in the newspaper articles from the 30s, it was really saying this was a great producer and is going to be a great mine. But it kind of fizzled out after a few years, so I'm not really sure. And then in the 60s, when they came in looking for that other metal, you look at the returns from the samples they got, you know, they were testing for gold too, and they just didn't find a whole lot. So I don't know if this was a great mine or whether it was just a bunch of hoopla. Let's go look at that shack right over there. So here we are. Wow, this still even has an old stove in here. Cool. Don't come up here and steal stuff. Leave it for the next guy to come look at. My grandparents used to have a stove just about like that in their house. Well, it wasn't quite that big, but very similar. I mean, that pretty dang cool. Of course, everybody's got to put their name up here. You can tell the house is starting to twist a little bit. Evidently, in the last few years, writing your name on the wall has become very popular up here. I don't see any real old dates. About the oldest I see is 2010. Here's some 08s. Here's some Skidoo guys. Must have come in here snowmobiling. Cool. Recliner even. Uh-oh. I did a vandalism. Ye old outhouse. Not often you find these in this kind of condition, especially in this country. Evidently they had electricity in here at one point, or planned on it. Probably a generator. Though there was a power line that came real close to here. I think it was about 3,000 feet away that went over the hill to Granite. So they might have got power from that line. So I see this portal is open. So we better go check that out. Made it up here to the portal. And we're right there. I think it's gated back in there. This isn't a privately owned piece of land, but it is probably somebody's mining claim. Seems like I looked it up here a while back, and it does have a claim on it. Though I've yet to find a claim post around here, so I don't know if it's a valid claim. There's quite a bit of water coming out. Let me go grab a flashlight. Now, I wanted to know how much I like you guys. I did not wear the proper attire today. I forgot my waders. So I just got my mocks on. But for you guys, I'm willing to get my feet wet. Not just anybody I'd get my feet wet for. So I know this was a crosscut back to the vein. They wanted to get lower down on the vein, and the vein's quite a bit higher up here on the hillside. And you know, obviously the higher up you go in the winter, the rougher it's going to be for weather. So they wanted their camp down here in the bottom, so they tunneled in from this level. And I'm trying not to get my feet wet, but that was pretty unsuccessful. Quite a bit of water. I'm trying to get the camera up close enough I can see through that grate. There we go. And if I remember right, this goes back, I want to say 1,500 feet. I'd have to look at the map again. But there's like 2 or 3 parallel veins, and then they cut one vein and then they dug back to the other vein. Definitely locked down in there. There's a lock. It'd be fun to go back and explore this one. At least they were smart. They dug this at an angle so the water flows out. You can definitely see the different... Boy, it's going to be hard to see through that grate. Come back a little bit maybe. That makes it worse. So up there you can see goes from one rock strata to another. Well, dang, this one's in good enough shape. I wouldn't mind exploring this one at all. Who knows who has that lock? Because I think the guys that had it, like 10 years ago, abandoned it. It's been sitting as an abandoned claim for quite a while. And whoever's got the claim on it now, I'm not even sure they've ever physically been here. I kind of think it's one of those guys that just go around and files claims and then sells them to somebody. Yep, that was me falling in the water. Now, not only are my feet wet, the back side, front side, everything's wet. It's okay. You're worth it. It teaches me to walk on slick rocks. It was hot today anyway. So, getting wet's so much fun. This part of the mine is a crosscut tunnel. What that means is they weren't really following any vein or anything here. They were just cross-cutting through the rock to get to the vein. The vein's back up here quite a ways. Once they got back to it, they kind of stoped up. And from the map, it looked like maybe they already had some winds as drove down from up above. So we'll go up to the upper parts and see if those are open. I kind of have my doubts about that, if they're open. This here, they dug this into solid rock. There's nothing really to slough off around it and plug it up, which is nice. I mean, there's some pretty good fractures in that. But for the most part, that's really stable. So there's the tailing pile, and most of what you're going to see down here at this level is granite or granite diorite. They were just tunneling through it to get to what they wanted. And I think most of the material that they were actually after, this snow shed that they had, it went out there a ways. So I think they dumped all the good stuff out there, probably hauled it off. They hauled several carloads, train carloads of it off to the smelter. So, this wasn't a huge mine. I think total workings added up to around 2,000, maybe a little over 2,000 feet of workings. Yeah, it could have been a little bit more with this crosscut tunnel. One set of rails come out over there. It's like somebody tried to put some pipe in to divert some of this water off. You can tell here on the waste rock pile, this is, for the most part, all granite. Or granodiorite, if you want to use the correct term. And they had another rail that went over there. That might have been the good pile over there. I don't know what their big plan was there. So up there on that hillside is where the vein actually was. We'll go up there in just a minute. I can tell you one thing, the road sucks getting in here. In places it's great, in other places it's totally foobar. Okay, just up a little higher, only a couple hundred yards up the hill from that portal. And I think I found the remains of the original mill. Oh heck, Sweet, sweet, sweet. Let me go grab the other camera. It's a little better in this kind of light. Man, that's awesome. So I'm back up with a better camera. Hopefully it's better. It got a little wet. Not super wet. I saved it for the most part, but the one thing I do not like about this camera is it doesn't have image stabilization. It's a Canon SL2. Takes great video, great pictures, but no stabilization. So this is a ball mill. Probably somebody come in and stole all the steel balls. Probably 4 to 6 inch diameter balls are in there. And this rolled around with the ore in it and just pulverized it to nothing before going on. That's usually where it fed in at. And this plate would have been on there most of the time, unless they were replacing the balls or something. I wonder where the bearings went. Why would you take the bearings? Big hunk of steel there. Who knows how much that weighs? That big drum. And over here. They must have just used gravity separation here. Interesting. Some more foundation down there. There should be a jaw crusher or something to get it ready for the ball mill. Let's go see if any of that's still in there. Pipeline coming down the hill. Well, this looks like it was just an ore bin, I think. But I don't see a way to get the ore out. Interesting. Not exactly sure how their setup worked here. Usually right there in the middle there's a door that they could release the ore down. So this mine, like many of the other ones around here, they were mining right in the contact zone between the granite and argillite. This stuff here. Like I explained on the Golconda video, this argillite would get kind of munched up where it was close to that intrusion of granite. And then it would get cemented back together with hydrothermal fluids that come up full of mineral. And that cemented area is what they were after, that little fine veins going through it. From what I've read about this one, it was similar to the other ones. This little ring. Where there was actually thick quartz veins, it was, not great. And where it was brecciated argillite, it was a pretty good ore. So there's that part of that mill. It's kind of baffling to me. Like I said, usually there's a jaw or a cone crusher or something before the ball mill. I sure don't see any sign of one. You can tell some of this has a high iron content in it. Almost looks like it's just rusting away. Right up here above this, I'm still kind of scratching my head. But it's interesting anyway. See that pipeline feeding down. Well, I think the road goes up there to where we need to go, so let's go that way. I think I found a piece of the ore. You can see further we get to the north, it's more granite. And over that way, it's all argillite. Boy, decisions. I got up here to the waste rock pile. Road splits 2 different directions here, so we're going to have to investigate both. But I'm going to show you where this portal used to be here. And this one, after looking at the maps, I don't think I would adventure back in this one. This one was dug right on the vein. A lot of times when they did that, it's really fractured, not nearly as stable. And this one had 2 or 3 winzes in it. So if there's any water in there, that might be kind of exciting. Okay, we definitely found a piece of the material right here. You can see that's argillite mixed with quartz, kind of all cemented together. That's definitely what they were after right there. Yeah, if you had a backhoe up here, it'd take you a few hours, but you could open this back up. But you can see the ground that it's dug in on. Unless you put a lot of timbering in or some culvert pipe or something, this thing would look just like it does now in no time. I generally don't like venturing back into portals with this kind of ground right around the outside of them. It's just too unstable. Like the one down below where it goes right into solid rock, good to go. Something that looks like this, boy, you're just asking for trouble. Well, I was just about to hop back on the four-wheeler when I spotted some more tracks over here. We'll find out what this is about. Maybe this goes back into solid rock. And if it sounds like I'm breathing hard, it's because we're up here about 8,000 feet today. Looks like a bear cave to me. Fairly solid rock up there. Not super solid. Let's go up there and take a closer peek. This was gated off. I think this was actually the main tunnel before they dug the lower one. You can see all the air lines and stuff heading back in there. It's almost 7 o'clock. I don't have my waders. Yeah, I wouldn't be scared at all of going back in this one. The only thing you might have to worry about is the air in here. There's not another opening back in there somewhere. When you got water in them like this, they can be a little problematic. Now, what's a little confusing to me is if this has a winze in it down to the other level like the map shows, why has it got so much water in here? Or this, it just may be up here at the front part of it. It may go back down there, back in there a ways, because usually these are sloped out a degree or two, so water comes out of them. So you may get back in there 100 feet or so, and this is dry. Boy, it's a big tunnel. I mean, it's got plenty of room, so obviously they use bigger equipment in here. Well, I'm guessing those guys in the 60s probably opened this up a little bigger. They may have actually just dug this new. That one over that we just looked at might have been the old one, and they just dug a new one in here. Don't know. Interesting, though. If it wasn't so late in the day and I had some waders, we'd be in business. Sorry, guys. I'm not going back in that one. If you look, focus. The moon's coming out. And some of these dead trees over here worry me, and this rock here kind of worries me, and I just don't want to go get all wet, okay? What makes me think this is... The other one that we were just at was the old tunnel, the old adit, and this was a newer crosscut to get back to the vein. Is you see there's really no sign of the contact zone here. There's nothing up here to indicate that this is what they were following. This is just pretty much argillite here. I mean, there's a couple little stringers in there, but and out here I don't really see anything that would indicate this is what they were following. So I think this was a crosscut, because I think I remember reading they did a crosscut at this level too. Let's go find out where these roads go. I think there's more digging above us. I know what you guys are thinking. Boy, that guy's a wimp. He's already got wet. Let's just go back there and get more wet. Well, to tell you the truth, this late in the day. It's going to cool off fairly quickly up here, even in the summer. I think it's probably around 75 up here right now. Once the sun goes down, it's going to cool right off, and we got about a 20-mile ride on this thing to get out of here, so I don't want to be shivering by the time I get back to the truck. That's right, I'm a wimp. So the road to the left comes up not too awful far, and there's a series of cuts down here over the hillside, done with probably a cat or something, exposing the vein. It looks like the vein kind of runs in a northeast, southwest direction. And up here, where they did the last cut over here, right up above it, it's a perfect example of the material that they were after. You can see down here, that was the original argillite, and it was all crunched up during that intrusion. And then quartz come in and kind of cemented it all back together. They weren't necessarily after quartz veins by themselves. They were after this brecciated rock. And I found something kind of interesting over here. I'm going to go take a gander at. Hoping to catch all these before it gets dark up here. And if you look up ahead here, you'll see the argillite. It kind of shows up kind of red. And right through it, you'll see granite diorite dikes. So when you're out and about, you see things like this, take the time to look around. Maybe take a sample. You can see this here really is very distinct. It doesn't have that crunched up stuff that they were after, that brecciated argillite. But I'm betting they found something similar to this down below, and that's what got them started. Well, they may have found it higher up here on the hill and followed it down. See down below us, right there, they took a cat in there and cutting in, trying to expose it. Real clear, those dikes in here. Fairly clearly defined. So I came up here, I don't know, this might be 3/4 of a mile above that mill down there. I was wondering why in the world does this road keep going? I couldn't see anything up above me, but sure enough, here's an adit. Not sure if it's part of the exact same vein or one of the parallel veins. It actually looks like a pretty decent sized waste rock pile. No, enough to go back 300 or 400 feet maybe, I don't know. Pretty good sized pile really, considering the steepness of this hillside. Pretty good flow of water coming out of it. And that mill down in that canyon. So to clarify what this actually was, this was a adit that was put in probably back in the 30s. Went back, they were trying to hit a vein back there. It appears that they hit a couple smaller veins, but not the vein they were really after. And the vein, I believe, was called number 4 big vein. So it looks like a couple guys with the last name of Ramsey, who I think was somehow related to a guy I went to high school with, oddly enough. Anyway, they made a proposal under the Office of Mineral Exploration to go in and try and get to that vein. And you'll find a few of these OME reports around. What it was a way to give incentive to miners to go out and find valuable resources such as gold, silver, and so forth. Now the other program that was in place that John Arthur had tried to use was the DMA program, which is the Defense Mineralization Administration. And their sole purpose was finding those base minerals, lead, copper, things that were essential for war efforts, trying to develop those. And the OME program was more for like gold, silver, and so forth. The OME program, once you got approved for it, the way I understand it, was they took a royalty amount out of all your earnings from that mine until you paid that amount back. And the original amount to go in and explore this vein was somewhere around $34,000. Now they didn't expend nearly that amount of money because it turned into kind of a boondoggle, it sounded like. And here, let's look at the report and I'll read a little bit of it. So let's look a little bit at this document here. And the purpose of the project is pretty much highlighted right there. Explore by cross-cutting, drifting, and long-hole drilling on the E-adit level of the Argonaut mine for gold and silver-bearing ore bodies in and along the number 4 big vein, which traverses folded quartzite, argillite, and slate strata of the argillite series, blah, blah, blah. So, that's what these guys are after. They were in there trying to find this vein, and they got good results on the top of the hill, and so they were to extend the adit a certain distance. The original adit that was there was 380 feet long, and they were to extend it, let's look here, extend the E-adit by about 100 feet. So extend that adit 100 feet and go back and hit that vein. Let's go down a little further, and then once you're back there on the vein, drive drifts northeasterly and southwesterly from the crosscut along the big number 4 vein. They estimated that the government estimated be about 600 feet of drifting would be required to really explore that vein, and also drill long holes back in there once they got there to do a little more exploratory work, at least 10 feet long holes back in there. And probably it says on here 1,400 feet of long hole drilling, which is quite a bit. So what they wound up doing is they did extend that adit back about 100 feet. The other thing that was included in this was building the road that I drove up there on. Government paid to have that road built up there to that adit, so that's the reason there's such a nice road going up there. That was built in about 68. So in 68, they started this project I think in 67. Pretty much wound it up the summer of 68 in the fall. They come back the summer of 69 and was supposed to do some more drifting, but it didn't get accomplished. Yeah, here it says in 1968 the crosscut was advanced 109 feet. Cool. But only 16 feet of drifting was done on that vein. They were kind of harsh on these guys when they wrote their report. Early on, a little more into this report, the field notes from some of the government folks, evidently the one guy, I think it was Frank, got a new mucking machine up there, and the first day he used it, he cut his finger off with it. So that was in the report, and evidently he just went right on working. He taped his finger up and what was left of it and kept right on working. And here it says the operator was capable of driving a crosscut in massive rock, but did not seem competent to cope with the faulted ground that needed support. His apparent lack of experience in driving openings in heavy ground made him uncertain on how to proceed, and he appeared to be afraid of attempting to go through heavy ground. When they talk about heavy ground, that's ground that needs support. It won't support itself. So evidently these guys were not super experienced at the time of driving tunnels or adits into ground like this. So they got back in there. If you really read into this, they got back in there. They hit the vein, but it's a fault line, and a lot of water started coming out, and it needed immediate support, so they weren't really prepared for it, and I think it just flat scared them, and so they backed off the whole thing. So, there could be a possibility there could be some pretty good gold in that vein, because these guys only drifted 16 foot on it and only took 2 samples out of that vein. Who knows what's really back in there? Now here's some interesting maps from the same report. These old reports, if you can get your hands on them, are super interesting. Lots of good maps usually involved with them, especially the ones that were done in the 50s and 60s. The maps are a lot more accurate. And for instance, this map here, we can see right up here, that's the adit that I'm currently standing at. and the one that they dug back on the hill a little further. And down below here, you can see the this adit that they punched in. This is the crosscut that's gated. And here's the upper level right there. And the mill was right there. So you can see, I think this was the collapsed adit, and then at some point they drove another crosscut in, probably right about right here. The one that I wanted to go back in but didn't. So you can see there's a fair amount of workings in here. And the other thing I discovered in this report was around 1974, because these guys were still under contract, I think it's for 10 or 11 years with OME. If they go in and find anything, or they lease it out and somebody finds anything, they have to pay a royalty on that. Well, in 74, they leased this out to another company out of Canada to go in and do a bunch of exploratory work. So I think that's another reason a lot of this is in really good shape up there. The tunnels, the adits, a lot of it was rehabbed in 74. Looks like they were up there between 74 and 76 doing some work. So there's the backstory and all that, and what OME and the DMA programs were, so hopefully that was kind of helpful. So that kind of wraps up my visit to the heck mine am I at? Argonaut. I must say, I'm pretty happy to come up here finally. Seen it on maps for years and keep thinking to myself, I got to get up there, I got to get up there. I was really happy I could bring you guys along for the ride today, finding this for the first time, even though I got a little wet. I've dried out pretty good now though, so the ride out's not going to be too bad. The camera kind of lightens things up quite a bit, but it's starting to get kind of dark up here. Should get back to the rig about dark 30. These little structures that are left up here is super cool to come visit. I hope they stay for a while. This one looks like it could withstand some more. The floor's in pretty bad shape, but the rest of the building, not too bad really for this age. The other building up above is starting to lean a little bit. Maybe one of these days I'll come back with some waders and we'll go back in that one upper adit and see what's back there. I have a pretty good feeling it's dry once you get back in there a ways, and I think the water's just right there at the portal, so we'll go back one of these days and explore that. I just can't help but marvel this thing. It's cool, you know. I just really like seeing these still left. A lot of them have been burnt down over the years, so seeing one that's still up here, big thumbs up. So hey, as always, thanks for watching our videos, taking the time out of your day to give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day. Dang, skeeters are eating me.